Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining the Behind Company Lines podcast. Today we have Daniel Baraghoush, founder of ArcadeQuest, the bank for in-game points. Daniel, I'm so excited to chat with you. And as we were chatting before the show on how you've kind of created a really interesting, incentivized way to reward people for their gaming. And I know you've come from a vast background of different experiences and now are landing and working on this project. So definitely want to get into, ArcadeQuest. But before we get into all that, what were you doing before you started the company?
Well, great question, actually. Before I started ArcadeQuest, I was doing a lot of investor relations. So
Yeah.
before ArcadeQuest, I spent time doing marketing for public companies. Some public companies that did really well. One of them surpassed $1 billion market cap in last year in November. And in no means was that by my work, but it was really cool to see that process happen and really see that growth in front of my own eyes. Because when I started working with those folks, they were very early stage. They were at about 10 cents a share. They
Wow.
surpassed, $6 last year. So that was really cool. And my background, I've always been a self-taught programmer. And I also was a self-taught filmmaker. I made a few short films and won awards for them. And I've always been in the space of just trying to understand, what do people find interesting and then how can I help them solve that problem? And I really love the reward that comes after someone says, oh, this is really cool. Or when you'd make a short film or a video or a movie and they'd be like, oh, this is awesome. Like, that's what I
Yeah.
live for. That kind of like just appreciation of how good it worked for them or how much it solves their problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of I feel like they all fall in the line of finding out what users are really interested in and capturing that attention, which I feel like we all maybe have an idea of what that might be, but I think it's more complicated, or maybe, those who are really good at it have a different keen eye. What, in your opinion, is not only really attractive to users, but really engaging from either a marketing standpoint or from a different perspective in terms of like film and things like that? Are they similar? Are they different? And which particularly compelling for somebody's attention to actually be captured?
Yeah, I feel like everybody has their own problems that are top of their mind when you go throughout your day. There are things that you experience that are challenging to you or things that you don't like. And certain ones stand out more than others. Like, for example, maybe getting out of bed in the morning and your feet are cold. Well, that's a problem, but it's not really something that's super disruptive to your day. But if you're trying to send money to your family across the world and you can't, and they need it now, that's something that's going to bother you for a long time. So there's different kind of intensity of problems. And I think that's kind of how people's attention flows, is that what is the challenge that I'm experiencing? And then how do I see that reflecting in whatever it is that I'm viewing? Or because we're kind of constantly subconsciously looking for some kind of a relief or solution. And a lot of times we use social media as like a temporary form of that, just to kind of fill that need. But there are other situations where we need a more complete solution. So for example, with film, a lot of times what made people relate to the movie was because they saw themselves in it, and they saw themselves in it in the sense that they thought they were the character, but they experienced the same feelings or problems as that character, or they had seen that situations happen. And that relatability kind of over the challenge of that the other person is experiencing is where I feel like a lot of things in terms of marketing and also product are centered around. That's why it's so important to really understand who your customer is and what they do on a day-to-day basis, because that's how you understand how to relate to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, shifting the perspective, you figure out kind of what the pain or the need or the experience that you can connect to from the company standpoint. How do you develop, a message around a product that then connects to that experience that you're looking to connect it to? Because I think we might have an idea of how to do it, but if you don't do it right, the big misses are pretty big, and then people are just confused.
Yeah, absolutely. And it all comes around. I feel like timing, one of my early mentors always said, timing is only everything. And that's kind of the case in the markets as well as in just marketing and advertising and connecting with users. Because the time that you find the best conversion is at the moment that they're having the problem. So for example, in our ArcadeQuest situation, we had our first iteration of our product, which was being able to play with influencers live and on stream. And the way that we got our conversions was the influencer would be playing the game and then invite people to join. So they're already watching. They want to play with the influencer. They're in that moment experiencing the problem. And then we had a very strong conversion rate because of that. So it's identifying like what is the moment that the user is experiencing this issue and how do I introduce my solution at that moment? Because people are, depending on your product, if it's a higher price point or a lower price point, the higher
Mhm.
price point ones typically have a longer decision-making process, but the shorter ones,
Yeah.
they're mostly impulsive. And you really want to focus on the impulsive aspect because logical sales and logical persuasion is more expensive. And if you're selling a cheap product, you want it to be on the impulsive level. So you need
Yeah.
to find out when that's triggered, or you need to find a way to trigger it. So that's like one of
Yeah.
the main purposes of, your content or your messaging that you send out or your videos that you make for advertising your product is
Yeah.
you want to first emphasize the pain point. And AT&T
Yeah.
did the really good job of this, like way back, I think in the 90s, I think on a TV campaign where when they were trying to sell AT&T, they didn't say, hey, you need a phone to be able to talk to your family, pick up the phone and call them. What they did is
Yeah.
they showed like an older like mother, grandma at home alone by herself, by her phone, and then had her like inner thoughts of, oh, what is, my grandkids haven't called me, my son hasn't called me, it's so long, they don't care about me. So then what happens that the mothers and parents of the world are like, oh yeah, no, my kids haven't called me at least in the last 30 seconds. And then all of the kids and grandchildren are like, oh yeah, I haven't called my mom, I haven't called them. So it's like, oh, guilt, oh, sad. And then it's like, AT&T, they pick up the phone, they call, they're all happy. And then that's how they
Yeah.
communicate the problem and the solution. And I think a lot of
Definitely.
marketing is too focused on what does the company want? What do we want? And not enough on what is the user looking for and what is their
Yeah.
problem. And then when we do hit, that's when you get the really cool campaigns.
Yeah. Are there specific tools that help you identify the timing of it and, kind of capture the user experience better?
I'm sure there is, for me, it's mainly been a manual process so far.
Okay.
Just really spending time talking to users, both influencers and streamers, and also just, gamers who are on ArcadeQuest, subscribed or not, just understanding like what is their day to day, like what do they do? We like early on when we were building our product, I spent time building friendships with the people that were on our platform. Obviously, you
Mhm.
can't do it with everybody. But most people are very open to when you're building something, they want to give feedback, they want to give
Yeah.
suggestions. And if they're your customer, you should listen to them, not to yourself. So that was definitely a learning curve for me. But really building those friendships so that they'll tell you like, oh yeah, today I went to work during the day and then I came back and hopped on stream to, kind of wind down and have some fun. And immediately you're like, oh, okay, so what is the stream doing for you? It's helping you
Yeah.
wind down. Your purpose is for relaxation and fun. You're
Yeah.
not necessarily doing it to monetize, but maybe you want
Yeah.
to monetize as well, but you want to do it in a way that isn't stressful. So you understand a lot about the user's behaviors and why they do things. And then you can focus on building solutions for that.
Yeah. I love that thought process. And honestly, I think you've echoed a lot of, you say you're a self-taught engineer. I can see the logic being extrapolated from learning concepts of engineering and code and kind of going through a problem and solving it. What inspired you to start ArcadeQuest? You're doing marketing, you're a part of some really big campaigns, and I'm sure seeing a lot of success with the traction that you're building up for companies. And then you start ArcadeQuest. And what was the inspiration behind doing so?
Well, the cool thing is I always had, I've always been like a gamer, but I always say, I preface this by saying I'm a social gamer, which is a very nice way of saying I'm not very good at game, but I like to play with fun. Uh, but I have a
Myself
sibling of
included.
mine. Yeah, no, most people honestly are in the same boat, which makes me
Yeah.
feel really good. But I do have a younger brother of mine who's part of the top 2,000 Fortnite players in Western North America.
Wow.
I kind of credit him for my losing, but I also help me really keep a close eye on like what he's doing and like what's going on in the whole competitive space or semi-competitive world.
Yeah.
Like what is someone who really loves to game and games with their friends on almost every day? Like what do they like to do? What is their passion? Why do they do the things that they do? And because I'm very close with my younger brother, I was always really interested in the gaming world because I wanted to build something kind of along the same lines of just something that's cool that he'll enjoy,
Yeah.
So the first version of ArcadeQuest was really just for him to be able to do some contests or some competitions with his buddies. And then after that, I realized, there's pretty big opportunity here and look more into the space as a business angle.
Yeah. How does, in your, I'm sure you've done a lot of research around gaming, and in particular, I'm always fascinated to see how many more people are adopting gaming as a way, or not only just an outlet, but as an experience, as a kind of fun, form of connect people. In the last, say, 5 years, how much has gaming increased? And do you have any projections on how many more people will be on platforms gaming and continuing kind of growing the community? Because I think the access is just going to become that much more available, being now going more in the PC round. There's VR, there's so many other things that incorporate outside of a game station. But yeah, how much has it increased, and what are your projections for the future?
Yeah, and something that's really cool to see about the gaming space is that it's kind of grown up. And what I mean by that is that people who are, 13, 14, 12 years old, 16, 17, 18 years old playing games have now become adults. They have, part-time or full-time jobs, but they still game with their buddies on weekends and at night. And, like they still have nights where everybody comes over and they just play FIFA, right? And this is something that's an entire switch in the demographic of like what we thought of as adults. Because when we thought of adults, we were like, oh, they don't play video games, but that's changed now. So that's been really cool to see. Plus, there's more and more younger people coming in, fueling that growth. So, right now, the gaming industry as a whole, it sits over $220 billion, and it's growing at over 12% year over year, which is massive for an industry of this size, right?
Yeah.
And it's, so that means like in like 2030, we're looking at $583 billion industry if the current growth rate continues, which I think it will, or even increase in its speed because of Web3 and other tools that make it more of a sustainable habit or sustainable fun that you could do. So I do definitely think that it's scaling up, and I think gaming is starting to go into other worlds, because what is the metaverse? The metaverse is basically just like a massive game that you're using for business. EXP, the real estate company, they built this metaverse concept a while ago, right? And they're fully online, like an online real estate brokerage.
Yeah.
And people go into meetings inside their world and they walk in with their avatars, and that's the metaverse. And that's also a video game. Like that's what you do, your avatar walking around, interacting with people. I used to do that on Club Penguin. So it's the same concept. It's just being used across way more places now.
Yeah. And describe ArcadeQuest. We called it the bank for in-game points. Describe how you've kind of created the structure to kind of positively impact and create kind of rewards for gaming and spending the time, while you're looking to monetize, but really it's an outlet. How have you kind of married that experience with something that's rewarding?
Yeah, so it was cool. We started out with a feature, like I mentioned, where you can play with your friends. And then we added a feature where you can play with streamers and influencers. And then now, once we progressed in that angle, we realized that, at the end of the day, any gaming influencer is a gamer. So what we should be focusing on is just being able to play with friends and being able to play with friends at scale. So we created what we call quests, which essentially you enter using our in-app currency, ArcadeQuest coins. And you can use ArcadeQuest coins to participate in the match in the quest. And then when you enter, each coin goes towards the prize pool, and the winners get the prize pool in ArcadeQuest coins. And then they can take these coins and exchange it for V-Bucks, Amazon gift card, and just like cash it out for USD. So we've essentially done what a lot of these play-to-earn games are doing in Web3, but we haven't added the blockchain element at all, because we've been focusing more on just the user experience first before bringing on the tech. And then, as we were building this, we're experimenting with different monetization strategies. The first and most obvious one is, buy a bunch of coins and you can play with people, which is cool. And some people will do that, but eventually, it's like, it doesn't have the variable reward aspect. You know how many coins you're going to get. You know how many coins you're going to cost. And it's too predictable for people. And it also doesn't have the competitive aspect to it. Whoever buys the most coins is number one on the leaderboard. And that's another thing that we learned is that these influencers don't want to exclude members of their community with a
Yeah.
paywall. So in general, they want everybody to be able to come in because that's how they grow and scale. So there were a
Yeah.
few things that we learned from that. And we realized that if we pivot the purchase of coins to something that they can earn, gamers are much more interested in working for a prize. So for example, if we give away 10 coins a day, that's fine. But if we say, if you get 10 kills, you can get 10 coins, suddenly that's much more appealing because now
Yeah.
it's something that's under your control and something you can do to win that. So we added like a premium model where you can get 10 coins a day based off of your kills max. If you get 5 kills, you get 5 coins. But if you get 100, you get 10 coins. But if you are a subscriber, it's unlimited. So as many kills you get, that's how many coins you get. And this is in Fortnite. So if you get 100 kills in one day, you get 100 coins, and you can use those coins to enter these quests and then win bigger prize pools. And as we did that, we realized that, okay, so we've now become a place where people store their points from another game.
Yeah.
So they're storing their points that they get from Fortnite in ArcadeQuest. They're getting something that they can exchange. So the coins are exchangeable inside the community. They can send it to other people. They can also use it to enter a quest, and then they can also exchange it for money. So it's also a store of value. So we're like, okay, interesting. So we become a place where you store points from multiple platforms, use it to transact within your community, and also can exchange it for goods and products. So it's a store of value. So essentially, we've become a place that's a bank for in-game points. And that was kind of how the conclusion came about, was just through working with users and understanding what they're doing and what they like, and then adding features to meet those needs.
Yeah, no, it's incredible to see, and I feel like a lot of companies are shifting toward this model of kind of rewarding the work or rewarding the activity that, users have. I think, we're all familiar with, the in-app purchases kind of driving a lot of the growth, but there was definitely a ceiling to that or a threshold that you'd meet because at some point the accessibility gets lost. But I love the way you've thought about the kind of continuing to reward the experience and continuing to reward the, not only the activity, but also the activity within the application. And what are some cool, my mind goes to like partnerships and thinking about ways to, take these games and work with them to help either collect more user research or even, reward their users even more. What have you done around partnerships, or what are you excited about, now that you have, it sounds like you have a pretty good kind of structure for the platform and what it's going to be. What does that look like in terms of the future?
Yeah, so we're already fortunate enough to have a partnership with Razer. So Razer packs are going to be on our store, and you can purchase them with our coins. Fulfillment will be handled 100% by Razer, which is awesome. And also it includes all of their partner companies. So they have like deals with GTA, they have deals with Crunchyroll, like all these things you'll be able to purchase using our coins, which is fantastic. And then on top of that, we're approaching other game publishers because for the first time, we're really able to give people who do influencer marketing, specifically games who do influencer marketing, detailed analytics on their behavior of their influencers. So let's say I'm an influencer and I want to promote a game.
Yeah.
ArcadeQuest can tell the game publisher how many users I brought in, how much money they spent on me, how much my users spent, what is the increase or decrease in gameplay time when I'm running a quest versus not running a quest, what percentage of the users that came through me stuck around after the quest. All this data that's essential for a mobile gaming company to run an effective performance marketing campaign, they did not have before. So that's why a lot of mobile games don't do influencer marketing, because they can't properly track it. And there isn't a way for them to actually engage people. And we're the only one in the market right now who can do this for iOS, Android, or web, like cross-platform. There are some tools out there that allow you to reward people for playing and track like total gameplay time on desktop and PC and Android, but they work based off tracking the time that you're in the app. We actually connect with the back end of the game. So we get the real data of their in-game performance, not necessarily just how long the app is open.
Wow. It's incredible the amount of insight a company then can gain from that. And even, I'm sure, it opens up the doors to more creative, quests and ways you could partner with games and create even that much more of a unique experience, which I feel like a lot of people are really fighting for or craving, which is a unique experience through the either games or products or brands that they connect to. How many gamers do you have on your platform right now in ArcadeQuest, and what does that growth look like month over month?
Yeah, so we have over 10,000 gamers on ArcadeQuest so far. And we love them all. We're very excited to have them on there. And I think that one of my favorite things about the gaming community is they're the best group of people to tell you when they don't like something or when they do. They're very transparent, and they'll be straight to the point, and they'll like message you right away and be like, this is horrible. Like, one time I remember in our early days, we were like, going with this influencer. We put our game on stream with them and our platform, and they were screen sharing and kind of showing people. And then someone, like a few people in the chat were like, wow, that UI is absolutely horrid. And then the influencer is like, yeah, no, it's pretty bad. It's like out of the series. So we scrapped the whole UI, started from scratch, but like really nice and direct feedback.
Yeah.
And like, as for our growth rate, it's on the uptick right now. We're somewhere between 15 to 20% month over month, and we want to hit and surpass 30% month over month. And we have certain strategies and new user flows that we've released that kind of push more of the referral situation. So that was one of the things that's like, for influencers, it's really powerful. One influencer brings on, about 500 to 1,000 users, depending on their size. And these are active users, and these are users who play the game that you're supporting. And then we also kind of have now been looking at making it so that the users who come on can share it with their friends and use it within their communities as well. So the influencer brings in 1,000, that 1,000 becomes 2,000, that 2,000 becomes 4,000, because they can share with their own communities.
It's so fascinating and I love that anecdotal experience within your user base, and it must be so I feel like empowering to know what to build and what not to build and what direction to go. How do you manage the building process? Since I'm sure you're getting loads and loads of feedback. You probably have your own idea and vision, and I feel like if you can attest to the challenge of just like moderating what to build, what to focus on, and but still being in line with listening to your customers. How have you gone through that process?
Yeah, it's been tricky. It definitely was harder in the beginning, because when you first start out, you don't know what your core KPIs are, because you don't know, like, I feel like number one, you want to find out what is the behavior that you want to track. Like what behavior will people do that's going to generate revenue for you? Because in the early days of a startup, you're so excited that you kind of forget at times that this, at the end of the day, is a business, and the core job of business needs to be profitable and make money. And we see so many companies that are like, just growth, don't worry about profitability, don't worry about revenues and stuff like that. And it works for some models, just not for ours. So you have to understand where you are. And even now, that model may not be as effective, because we're in a different place in the development of technology than we were when Facebook came out and YouTube came out, where revenue didn't matter. Right now, there's so many effective marketing avenues out there that if you want to be an ad-only platform, you really have to differentiate yourself. It's not as easy as just going out there and getting some, people to run campaigns on your platform. So anyway, number one thing was figuring out our KPIs. So what user behavior will generate revenue for us? And for us, it's spending coins. The more coins that they spend, the more likely they are to subscribe, because they're using the platform more frequently. And then we wanted to identify what is a reasonable frequency rate. For us, it's not necessarily daily active usage, because we don't really want people or need people to be in the platform every day for them to subscribe. For us, it's weekly active. We want to know how often they are using the platform in the week. And once you find these KPIs, then you break it down and say, okay, this feature that we're launching or thinking about or feedback, will this increase any of these KPIs? Not necessarily will it make the experience better, but will it add to the usage of our platform, and will it translate to revenue?
Yeah. And describe a little bit about, I like to ask this question to kind of see within your market and what you're thinking about. What are some of the biggest risks that ArcadeQuest faces today?
Biggest risks, I'd say, are just how we can go about doing our integrations and doing how we can go about doing our growth, and really keeping a close eye on the competitive landscape. It's important to realize that the number one moat for our business is the network effect. And when that's your number one moat, you have to pay attention to how engaged are your users with each other and how hooked are they within your platform. So we don't have any kind of like proprietary technology in the sense of like a patentable algorithm of that sense. But what we do have is a really good user experience. We're not first to market either. And like, there's a bunch of contest platforms out there for gamers, but really focusing on the community aspect and community gaming. And I think that's where we differentiate ourselves, is by putting all our energy there, realizing that's going to be what's really going to drive our moat. And at the same time, keeping an eye out and just being aware of what's going on in the competitive landscape of the world. And especially with Web3, because there's a lot of opportunity for, kind of reward-based systems in Web3. And you have to be at the forefront of that as a product that's offering that to users.
Yeah. If everything goes well, what's the long-term vision for ArcadeQuest?
I think long-term is definitely going to be IPO on NASDAQ. In the beginning, we were thinking there could be a possibility for acquisitions. And, still, if there's a very good acquisition offer, then obviously we won't turn it down. Our investors would not be happy. But I think that the company has grown to the point where it has teeth and it's like its own standalone product. In the beginning, when we were just a tool essentially where influencers could play with their fans, that would be an acquisition strategy that would make more sense, because you rely on Twitch, you rely on this game, you rely on this. So we had a lot of other dependencies, right? There were specific constraints that we were held to because of Twitch, because of Fortnite. But this new model that we're doing, where you can store points and use them from multiple different games, this one is something that has teeth to it in and of itself. It can be a standalone product.
Yeah. If you weren't working on ArcadeQuest, what would you be doing?
I have no idea. Probably starting another startup, something in maybe the fintech space. I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm pretty interested in like economics and banking and that whole world. So I think I would be there in some sense, but I'd definitely be building a company, because I've done quite a few jobs in the past few years, and I think that building a business is the one where I really enjoy the most, because I have the most direct interaction with our customers and with the users, and we have full control over the entire funnel. So if there's an issue in marketing, we can adjust that, and we can also adjust our product to better meet the needs of marketing. So it's like a really cool place to be, where that the only reason that anything goes wrong is you. So you're fully responsible, which means you cannot complain to anybody else. And I think that's really cool. You can't complain about the market. You can't complain about users. You can't complain because you're the one where the buck stops at you. And I feel like that's a really cool place to be. And sometimes it could be stressful, but it's you learn so much in such a short amount of time that there's nothing quite like it.
Yeah. I love that. And I always like to ask this next question for selfish research purposes, but also for my audience as well. What books or people, whether it's early in your career or now, have influenced you the most?
Oh, that's a good question. So I'll start off with the one that's like least important out of like the hierarchy of things that we should know. I feel like the one that's not as important is your like skill sets, like systems and stuff, but it's still very important. Like strategies are very important, but I feel like it's 20% of the puzzle. Now, some important strategies are books I've read about those for sure. One of them is called Hooked. It's just about building a product and understanding why users come back, intrinsic, extrinsic motivators, like what are the triggers, all these things. Super, super key. After I read that book, totally changed my perspective on products and product development. It was like just lifting the fog. It was amazing. Another one for sure is The Four, 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. Obviously a really good book. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Got to know that one. Like at the end of the day, if you realize that if people don't like working with you, it doesn't matter how much you pay them, they won't do the best that they can. And all you really need in order to be successful is to make sure that everybody around you is doing the best that they can and you're doing the best that you can. And then in terms of philosophy books, like there are a few books like Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. That one I read when I was really young. It was really good. I guess The Secret is a book too, but I saw the movie of that one first.
I love The Secret. I will say I have read that myself when I was young, and it impacted me more than I had thought. Over time. Yeah.
Me too. I feel like it was cool. It kind of opened the door to that world. There was a lot of stuff that I didn't go into detail about, but it was definitely a cool one to dive into. But another one is also Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles. That one's from like 1908, and that's a really interesting book in terms of philosophy. The Art of War is a really good one. Good to Great, if you're looking to like scale up a business and management wise and just understand what it means to be a leader versus, other definitions. That one's definitely a very good one. And then some other speakers and stuff like, Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn definitely has a lot of really good content. And I'm trying to think, there's another book, did I mention Art of War?
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Oh, another cool book that's like just, it's based on a true story, but it's not really a personal development book, but it's a really cool book that affected me is, Papillon.
Yeah.
It's a story about the guy who gets wrongfully sent to prison and like spends his whole life trying to escape. So really cool book. And Pursuit of Happiness, the movie. Love that one.
Yeah, with the one with Will Smith, right?
Yeah.
I love that, man. I love the diversity of things that impact and influence you. And I think that speaks to the founder generate and to a lot of founders where it's like, I think people may assume that we're fully invested in whatever we're doing, and we are. But there's also, innate curiosity to the other aspects of life that I think reinvigorates a lot of the energy and motivation that can, that gets taken away from, working so hard on something, but then it gets replenished. And so I know we're at the end of the episode, and I think we could dive into so many more topics, but real quick, I always like to give my guests a chance to give us your plugs. Tell us where we can support ArcadeQuest, where we can get involved if we're a gamer, what are your websites, LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitches, Discords, whatever you have, throw it at us.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, for sure. So you can find us on, iOS, Android, web. If you search up ArcadeQuest, one word, arcadequest.app is our domain name, .app. And on Twitter, we're also ArcadeQuest app. And LinkedIn is just ArcadeQuest. So, one word, ArcadeQuest, so search it up and find us. You can sign up and happy to, if you mention you're from this podcast, I'll definitely make sure that I pick up your support ticket and chat with you guys. And yeah, I mean, as one of my really early mentors said, I need a small army, but we know where to find one. So if you guys have any suggestions, any improvements, any thoughts, always open to feedback and always happy to chat.
Amazing. Well, Daniel, I hope you enjoyed yourself, and thank you again for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It was awesome.
Of course.